I'm working on a biography of a Crusade leader, Renaud of Châtillon, who was murdered by Saladin after the Battle of Hattin in 1187. And his grandfather, I believe it was the Lord of Danzy and the Count of Chalon in northern France. The county of Chalon was a significant principality, a county rather. His grandfather sold that county in order to raise the money to go on crusade, so he pretty much permanently alienated it from the family, which is something that medieval nobles didn't like to do.
Right.
But he did it in order to get the money to go on. It was a second part of the first.
You know, Aristotle teaches that property is really an extension of the self.
And he
so
was
to
giving
divest yourself of your property, that's an enormous depletion.
Yes, and they did it habitually and commonly. You had to do that to go on crusade, and everybody knew it.
So when we commit this blackguardism about our ancestors, that's a kind of historical libel. We slander the dead. We dishonor them. We don't take seriously the motives that they pretty plainly set out.
For anybody who is serious about being able to practice his or her faith freely and openly and to the extent that you want to be able to do it, for anyone who has that orientation to be negative about the Crusades is an act of ingratitude, I'm afraid.
And it's our family history.
And ignorance. Ignorance and ingratitude, yes.
And because it is our family history. It's part of our lineage. It's part of our understanding. Whether or not we have direct descendants who were in the Crusades or not, it's part of our corporate history. And we need to understand that. And we need to make sure we defend against fact from fiction. But you've alluded a little to this, and we've talked about kind of how this broke down. And we have this clear understanding of what should be understood. But the historians haven't approached it. Popularists haven't approached it with the humility you called for, and that's probably where it started breaking down in our current understanding. The cultural understanding today was really broken down. Is that an accurate way to say that whether it be from the Reformation or other popular works, where did this idea, this true understanding, historically accurate understanding, really start breaking down? When did that fall apart, really?
Well, as Scott mentioned earlier, the Reformation is a significant moment when it breaks down. Luther, I think, at one point said, or is said to have said, he'd rather have the Turk than the Pope.
Is that right?
I'm not sure he meant it, but he said some extreme things.
Which some Byzantines said too.
And Byzantines also said it sometimes, yes. So it's partly from the Reformation, partly from, on the part of some, not all, Byzantines' distaste for the Pope. It comes from the Enlightenment. Certainly Voltaire told a lot of lies, I'm afraid, about the Crusades and about other aspects of Christianity. Voltaire preferred Islam.
What time frame is that?
This is the 18th century. Voltaire is the earlier 18th century, and he preferred Islam as a government religion to Christianity. He was quite clear about it. But you also get it at the end of the 19th century. In the 19th century, there were Europeans who were pro-imperialism, and they tended to glorify the Crusades, seeing them as imperialistic activities. They were wrong. They weren't imperialistic, but they were positive about them because of their misunderstanding. Any European who was anti-imperialistic was negative about the Crusades, again from a mistaken idea. And then when you get Marxism and people like Lenin, who were so anti-imperialistic, they looked at the 19th century's understanding of crusading as imperialistic and rejected it. But it's again from a misunderstanding of what crusading is about. It's never imperialistic.
The figure of Voltaire, I think, is fascinating because he represents a kind of symbol. He's a cynic, really.
Very
and a
much
parasite.
so, yes.
I mean, it's the confiscation of the spiritual riches of Christianity by men who no longer believe in Christianity. So they feed off what they regard as a corpse, and yet it's life-giving. And I resent that. I mean, somebody needs to go back and exhume Voltaire and try him for these crimes.
And recognize what an emblematic figure he is, because his name is now Legion, for there are so many intellectual parasites who advance their own agendas based upon the capital, the little residual capital that is left of Christendom.